Vishupad Paramahamsa Vichaya Shota Satu Shishmachila A.C. Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jayam Vishupad Paramahamsa Vichaya Shota Satu Shishmachila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Srila Prabhupada ki Ananta Kodi Vaishnava Vrinda ki Sirup Si Sanatan Bhattaraganachi Jeev Gopala Bhattada Saraganachari Goswami Prabhu ki प्रेम से गो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवजरी गौर भक्त वृंद की श्री राधा कृष्ण गो गोपाल गोपी गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंद राधा कुंद गिरि गोवर्धन की वृंदावन धाम की मथुरा धाम की मायापुर धाम की जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की तुलसी महारानी भक्ति देवी की गंगा यमुना देवी की हरिनाम संकीर्तन यज्ञ की श्री श्री गौनिताय की श्री श्री कृष्ण बलराम की श्री श्री राधा श्याम सुंदर की गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल समवेत भक्त वृंद की all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Reading from the Bhagavad-Gita, as it is, 15th chapter, text number 11. 11. Yatanto yoginaś cainaṁ paśyanti ātmani avasthitam yatanto api akṛtātmāno nainaṁ paśyanti acetasaḥ yatantaḥ endeavoring yoginaś transcendentalist cha also enam this paśyanti can see ātmani in the self, avasthitam situated, yatantaḥ endeavoring, api although, akṛtātmānaḥ those without self-realization, na do not, enam this, paśyanti see, acetasaḥ having undeveloped minds. Translation, purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. Translation. The endeavoring transcendentalists who are situated in self-realization can see all this clearly. But those whose minds are not developed and who are not situated in self-realization cannot see what is taking place, though they may try to. Purport. The many transcendentalists on the path of spiritual self-realization. But one who is not situated in self-realization cannot see how things are changing in the body of the living entity. The word yoginaś is significant in this connection. In the present day, there are many so-called yogis and there are many so-called associations of yogis, but they are actually blind in the matter of self-realization. They are simply addicted to some sort of gymnastic exercise and are satisfied if the body is well built and healthy. they have no other information. They are called yatanto akṛta-ātmānaḥ. Even though they are endeavoring in a so-called yoga system, they are not self-realized. Such people cannot understand the process of the transmigration of the soul. Only those who are actually in the yoga system and have realized the self, the world, and the Supreme Lord, in other words, the bhakti-yogīs, those engaged in pure devotional service in Kṛṣṇa consciousness, can understand how things are taking place. Om Ajnanatimidandasya Jnananjanasalakaya Chakasodonmilitam yanam tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya-manabhistam sthapitam yena bhutale Sayam rupakadhamayam dadati sabhadantikam Bandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuddhabadagamalan Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatan Vidam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishagan Vidamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshari Brijabano Sude Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Paritanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivajari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Yatanto yoginaś cainaṁ paśyanti ātmani avasthitam yatanto akṛtātmāno nainaṁ paśyanti acetasaḥ. The endeavoring transcendentalists who are situated in self-realization can see all this clearly. But those whose minds are not developed and who are not situated in self-realization cannot see what is taking place, though they may try to. In this chapter entitled The Yoga of the Supreme, means linking with the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Person, Kṛṣṇa. Kṛṣṇa here is explaining to Arjuna about the living entity, the spirit soul, who is situated in material body. And is explaining that the persons, jnana chakshu, who have transcendental knowledge, who can see, jnana means knowledge, chakshusha means the eyes. So real seeing is with knowledge. Simply with these material eyes, we can see something, but proper seeing is there when we have knowledge. So therefore, even we can see that the embodied being already in childhood, so it's being taught by, first of all, the parents. He's getting knowledge and then he's going to school. In this way, by this acquiring of knowledge, then one can see things as they are. in this material world, but then what to speak also in the spiritual world. In order to advance in spiritual life, in order to be situated on the spiritual platform, as spirit soul, and in order to understand the Supreme, one must approach a spiritual master, the representative of the Lord, and inquire from him submissively about transcendental knowledge, being pleased with the practicing devotee, the sadhaka. The spiritual master will impart knowledge, so by which the embodied being, the spirit soul, practicing devotee, can see things as they are, can see properly. Whereas others, they will never be able to understand. So this has been explained. So the living entities in this body, gross material body, and is a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, and so on, which are grouped around the mind. So there's a gross body, and then there's a subtle body, which consists of the ego. Two kinds of ego. The real ego is understanding I'm the eternal servant of Kṛṣṇa. False ego is identifying with his material body, with his material world. I am a man, I'm a woman, I'm Swiss, I'm Indian, I'm a lawyer, I'm this or that. So that is not the real identity, that is only the physical existence in this material world, which is temporary. And of course, in this material world, we have to act with this material body. So some sense of identity has to be there. And therefore, everyone also in this material world, in each country has a passport, and then there's a name there. And where he belongs to, what is his age, or where he was born. So that is there, but that is the temporary body. Whereas we have to come to the spiritual platform, and we have to try to understand our real self, as spirit soul, and our relationship with the Supreme Being, with Kṛṣṇa. That is the process of self-realization. And the perfection is ātma-sakshatkar, direct perception of the self, a spirit soul, and our permanent relationship with Kṛṣṇa. In the highest realm, in our case, in our sampradaya, in Golok Vrindavan, as a friend, as a servant, or having parental affection towards Kṛṣṇa, or having a conjugal relationship with Kṛṣṇa. So, in the human form of life, it is explained in the scriptures that that is the prime duty of the living entity. Atato Brahma jigyasa. Now therefore is the time to inquire about Brahman, about the absolute truth. Otherwise, according to scriptures, if one is simply interested in eating, in sleeping, in working, and having some recreation also, if one is doing that, then it is mentioned in scriptures, pashuhi saman. That is just like a pashu, an animal. Animal is eating, animal is sleeping. Animals is working very hard actually for sense gratification. And then even the animals, you can see they're playing. So they have eaten nicely, they're sleeping also, endeavoring to get more food. But then they have some fun, they run around and play with each other. So, but when one has a human form of life, one should do more than just eating, sleeping, working, and then having some fun, some recreation. So that is the endeavor for self-realization. And so the process is there. So first of all, one must have this knowledge, which is known as Sambandha Gyan. One should know our real relationship is there with the Supreme Lord. And that somehow we have come in this world, but it is not the real place to be. But we belong to the spiritual world, to the spiritual kingdom. So the spiritual world is there, the material world is there, and somehow we are here in the material world. And so the aim is to become free from this material entanglement, from the modes of material nature. So for this, a process has to be there, padati. And that is explained here, yoga, the yoga of the Supreme. So yoga means to link with the Supreme. And throughout the Bhagavad-Gita, Kṛṣṇa has explained different performances are there of this yoga practice. Karma yoga, linking with the Lord and then working. So everyone in this material world has to work in order to be able to take care of this body, to maintain the body, and things associated with the body, family, house, and so on. And so Karma Yoga means one is working and one has some spiritual understanding that yes, we are not this body, we are spirit soul. That is the beginning of spiritual understanding, of spiritual life. And then, by working, one will get some result. So giving some of the result to the Supreme, at the same time still being attached to this material world, and then some sense gratification will be there. But one is recognizing the Supreme Lord and one is giving the result of one's work, or some part of the result. Because one has to maintain oneself. But the little result is giving to the Lord. So that is known as Karma Yoga, which is fine in the beginning stage, but one has to go further. And then there's Jnana Yoga. Those who are much more interested in understanding their self, a spirit soul, in order to advance in spiritual life. So they're studying the scriptures, they're inquiring from the guru, the spiritual master, the spiritual teachers. And in this way, slowly but surely, they are advanced. So they are advancing, but even amongst those, the Jnana Yogis, there are different kinds of Jnana Yogis. So some of them, they have some knowledge and they understand the absolute truth is there, beyond this material world, it is eternal. And they understand we are spirit soul and we are also eternal. And then they want to become one with the absolute truth. So they are known as Brahmavadi or Mayavadi. So they want to become absorbed in the absolute truth. So that is the beginning of the little more advanced stage of spiritual understanding. Of course, it is actually, from one point of view, also the karma yogis, those who are engaging in working in this world and giving some result to the Supreme Lord, they are actually more advanced than the jnana yogis, those who are acquiring knowledge, but they want to merge in the absolute truth and become one. Which may be possible, but that is also rarely achieved. But even if one is able to do that, after giving up this body, merging in the Brahma Jyoti, the light, the absolute truth, the impersonal aspect of the absolute truth, some yogis may be able to do that. But it is rare. And that is not the ultimate goal. It is not the perfection. And it is mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam, those who come to that state, so they will have to fall down again to this material world in due course of time. It may be millions and trillions and so many years, but they cannot remain there permanently because it is not the natural situation to be in that state. The actual constitutional position of the jiva, of the living entity, is to serve Kṛṣṇa. Krishnera Nittadas, the eternal servant of Kṛṣṇa. That is the constitutional position of the living entity. Servant of the Lord, in loving a relationship, without expecting anything in return, for the pleasure of the Lord, serving in a loving relationship. So those jnani yogis who are a little more advanced, so they will understand that actually the Supreme Lord is there and we have to serve the Supreme Lord. And then the hatha yogis are there, those who are doing hatha yoga, and they're meditating on the Lord. Also, on the super soul actually, Paramatma, situated in everyone's heart. And even amongst them, there are different yogis of that kind. We're trying to meditate on Paramatma. Even amongst them, some of them, they're trying to merge with the Paramatma. So they are just like the Mayavadis. A little difference, because the Mayavadis think that the absolute truth is impersonal, the big light, the Brahma Jyoti. Whereas the others here who are meditating on Paramatma, so they will understand that the absolute truth is a personal concept of the Supreme Lord, situated in everyone's heart. So, but some of them, they want to merge in the form of the Lord, which is also not actually desired, which is not the ultimate destination, which is almost like the Mayavadis, the Brahmavadis, who merge in the impersonal aspect. So one point of view, it might seem a little more advanced to merge in the form of the Lord. But that is not the proper situation for the jiva, for the living entity. But it is mentioned they're a little more advanced than the impersonalists. So here also, in regards to that, Srila Prabhupada is explaining, and it is well known, or we have seen that especially, well, not only in the West, but even in India. So there are many who are practicing yoga, Ashtanga yoga, Ashtaanga, 8 limbs. Even there was a great philosopher, Patanjali. He explained about this yoga, Ashtanga yoga, 8 limbs of the process of yoga. Yam, niyam, asan, pranayam, pratyahar, dharana, dhyan, and samadhi. So these are the 8 stages. So in the English words, yam means following some rules and regulations, and niyam also, what to do and what not to do. Like taking early morning a bath. The yogis who are meditating in the Himalayas or on the Paramatma, they will usually take 3 times a bath, morning, noon and evening. Even it is recommended for the sannyasis to take 3 times a bath, morning, noon and evening, before chanting the Gayatri mantras. And then, so everyone has to actually follow some rules and regulations. Any yogi, otherwise he will not be able to do yoga if he's not following some rules and regulations. So one has to control also the eating, the sleeping, and eat only sanctified food, vegetarian food. And as a yogi, one should not eat too much, and one should not sleep too much. And then sitting properly, asana, and then pranayam, some breathing exercise to control the mind and the senses, pratyahar, to control the mind and the senses, withdrawing them from the sense objects. That has to be done. Although it is very difficult, and ultimately only those who are highly advanced, they can fully control the mind and senses because of their devotion to the Supreme Lord. Then Kṛṣṇa is protecting them. And then by doing this continuously, then dharana, one can see the form of the Lord within the heart. But it may not be uninterrupted, it may be sometimes. In little more advanced stage, dhyan, it is practically continuous, some remembrance is there of the Lord. But that is not the highest stage. Highest stage is known as samadhi. When the intelligence, the consciousness is equiposed and fully absorbed, internally specifically. But even of course if one is internally absorbed, then means externally also one is able to engage always in spiritual activities. And then the Supreme Lord and His qualities and His pastimes with His devotees are revealed to that devotee. And that point also the devotee can fully understand His spiritual form, His transcendental form, and His relationship with Kṛṣṇa or Vishnu. And that is the perfection. So it is not, as Prabhupada has explained, that yoga means to just do some exercise, some gymnastic exercise. And then when the body is well, be satisfied. Like especially in the West, but now even in India, the many are very much interested in yoga. And they do yoga and then the body is, actually by doing yoga, the body becomes fit. And one is healthy. By doing yoga and pranayam, one can have good health, which is actually required in order to engage in devotional service. Prabhupada also used to say, first we have to take care of our health, and then only we can chant properly and do our studies of the scriptures, and then we can properly engage in devotional service. If one is not healthy, still one may be able to do something, but it is difficult. It is troublesome. Therefore, one should try to have good health. But one should not overly endeavor to have good health and just think about the body like some of nowadays the yogis are trying to do, those who are doing yoga, just thinking about the body and being healthy. But then they are not concerned about their own self as spirit soul, because they actually don't have sufficient knowledge. They have some knowledge, oh yes, yoga is good. But they do not understand the actual purpose of yoga. So the asanas and pranayam, that is only the third and fourth step of the Ashtanga yoga, the eightfold practice of yoga. And one has to follow rules and regulations. And one has to study the scriptures. And one has to meditate on the Lord. Then one will be actually properly situated. Then one is actually doing yoga. So the yoga which is taught in the West is not complete. Because the teachers, they are also not well trained or properly trained under the guidance of a pure devotee. So they have some knowledge, there's some expertise there in yoga practice, in pranayam. They may understand their spirit soul. But because they are not fully absorbed on the transcendental plane of the soul, therefore they are not able to advance further and they are not able to teach the actual purpose of yoga. So, but those who are engaged in devotional service, they are properly situated on the path of self-realization, and then they can see everything very clearly in regards to the absolute truth, and even in regards to the material world. They will understand why people are suffering, what is happening in this world. But those, as explained here, acetasaḥ, those whose minds or consciousness is not developed and are not situated on the platform of the soul, they cannot see what is actually taking place. Yatantaḥ apihi, even though they may endeavor, they may be endeavoring, but they cannot see properly who is who and what is what. Therefore, their advancement is very slow. And therefore, throughout the Bhagavad-Gita, and also like in the 6th chapter, Kṛṣṇa says, yoginam abhisarvesham ātmana sarvam bhajati mam same yukta tamamataha. And all the yogis, of all the yogis, those who are situated in devotional service, those who are thinking about me within, they're the greatest of all the yogis. So bhakti is required, devotion, engaging in devotional service under the guidance of the spiritual master, the pure devotee. In this way, linking with the Supreme Lord, bhakti-yoga. Then, by Krishna's mercy, by the mercy of the spiritual master, one can see things then very clearly. In regards to spiritual life, how to advance further and further. And then even in the material world, one can understand the things properly. So that is actually in this chapter, very clearly towards the end also. That is explained very nicely. So the true yogi is one who is engaged in devotional service, who is doing bhakti-yoga. He is properly situated. And by engaging continuously in devotional service, he can make more and more and more advancement. towards perfection. Of course, even in devotional life, as devotees who are doing bhakti-yoga, it will take some time to come to the perfectional stage. First of all, it is explained also one must have faith, shraddha, in this process. And then sadhu sangha, one must be in the association of the devotees, the pure devotees. Then bhajana kriya, then one can engage nicely in devotional service. And then anatani vritti, then all unwanted things, all impurities, all misunderstandings, all attachments, they may go away. And then one is firmly fixed on the path of self-realization in devotional service. And by continuously being fixed, giving up all sense gratification, acting for the pleasure of the Lord, then one will get the taste for performing devotional service. Seva ruchi. One will get the taste for chanting of the holy names. Nam ruchi. And then one can more rapidly advance in spiritual life. So also of the different limbs of devotional service, the most important of all is the chanting of the holy names, the mantra Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. By engaging in devotional service, accompanied by the chanting of the mantra, so not only we do japa or we do kirtan, but whatever we are doing, it may be accompanied, if possible, by chanting of the holy names. Cooking for Kṛṣṇa, then we may also chant while cooking. While cleaning the temple, one may chant. Whatever one may be doing. So possibly if you can chant also the holy names, that is the best process. And by doing this continuously, with love and devotion, with affection, then one becomes attached to Kṛṣṇa. And if one is attached to Kṛṣṇa, then only one can become detached from this material world. If one is not attached to Kṛṣṇa, then one cannot be completely detached from this material world. Although only in some rare cases like the Mayavadis, Brahmavadis, or some yogis, Hatha yogis, Ashtanga yogis, even without serving the Lord, but by being simply situated in the self, a spirit soul, but not with a proper understanding, they may also become free from being attached to material things. But it is very rare. Of course, even as devotees, to become detached from this material world, it is not easy. One has to practice for a long time. Then one can become free from the three modes of material nature, from being attracted to material things. So therefore one has to continuously engage in devotional service, and then one can become attached to Kṛṣṇa, and then when one is attached to Kṛṣṇa, one can become detached from this material world. Asakti. And then after, when one is situated on the transcendental plane, realizing oneself as being the eternal servant of Kṛṣṇa, practical realization, not just theoretical, on that plane then, transcendental emotions will come from the soul. And then there's a transcendental loving exchange with Kṛṣṇa. And then one is, truly speaking, properly situated. And then the sprouting of, the prema ankur is there, the sprouting of love of Godhead will be there. Pure love of God. And then one may be able to enter the kingdom of God and engage in the direct service of the Lord in realized position. And then there's a full exchange with Kṛṣṇa, loving exchange. And that is the perfection of life. So the more one is advanced, the better one can understand things as they are. As explained also, Bhagavad-Gita as it is. Proper understanding will be there. So Prabhupada, he was properly situated as a pure devotee, of course, eternal associate. He came here by the will of the Lord to deliver the fallen conditioned souls. So he was always properly situated. So means he was seeing things clearly, as mentioned here, as they are. So therefore he could write Bhagavad-Gita as it is. Bhagavad-Gita means the song of the Lord. Kṛṣṇa speaking to Arjuna. So when the Lord and the pure devotees are speaking, it is like a song. Like it is mentioned also, Shya Kanta Kanta in the Brahma Samhita. Shya Kanta Kanta Parama Purusha Kalpatarvo Dhruma Bhumischintamani Ganamayato Yamamritam Kathaganam Natam Gamanam Apivam Sivya Shaki. So every step is like a dance. When the devotees, when Kṛṣṇa is walking, it is like a dance. Very beautiful, elegant. And also the pure devotees. And speaking is like singing, very beautifully. So we may be speaking and that may be appreciated, especially if we speak about Kṛṣṇa. But then, for example, we may see if somebody is singing, that is much more attractive. Just for example, we say Hare Kṛṣṇa, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So when love is there, that is very beautiful and attractive. But if one is singing Hare Krishna, Kṛṣṇa Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So when we are singing, it is more beautiful even. So the pure devotees of Kṛṣṇa, when he's speaking, it is like a song. Or the pure devotees also, it is like singing, very beautiful. So Bhagavad-Gita, the song of Bhagavan, the Supreme Lord, he was actually speaking, but it was like a song. Very beautiful. Although just before the battle of the Kauravas and the Pandavas, and they're going to kill each other. Of course, the Pandavas, they were saved, they were protected by Kṛṣṇa. They were the survivor. So, Kṛṣṇa is actually very merciful, most merciful. So he's giving these wonderful instructions for us, speaking to Arjuna for our benefit. So we may understand things as they are. So we may be able to properly engage in devotional service. So we may be able to properly advance towards the highest destination. And that pure knowledge of Kṛṣṇa, that is handed down in the disciplic succession. Evam parampara praptam imam rajasya So knowledge is coming from the Supreme Lord, and then it is handed down in disciplic succession. So Kṛṣṇa first spoke to Brahma, but then, as explained in Bhagavad-Gita, he spoke to the sun god also. He spoke in the form of Hansavatar to the four Kumaras, in the form of Narayan to Lakshmi Devi, and also he himself spoke to Lord Shiva. And then Shiva spoke to his disciples, his followers. The four Kumaras to their followers. Brahmaji spoke to Narad. Of course, even also he spoke to his four sons, the four Kumaras. So they got knowledge from Lord Brahma, and they got knowledge also from Hansavatar. And to other persons also Brahma spoke this transcendental knowledge. And Lord Shiva, he spoke to so many. So then in this way the knowledge is handed down from spiritual master to disciple. And the so the qualified guru, Sadguru, who is transcendentally situated, is giving this pure knowledge to the deserving disciple, those who are endeavoring nicely. And by the mercy of the Lord, they are properly situated, the disciples. Those who are sincere and following seriously. And they become Sat Shishya, disciples who are properly situated. And they in turn, they become also spiritual master, and then they will have their disciples. And they will give the knowledge to them. And in this way the knowledge is handed down. And so it has come to Srila Prabhupada from the disciplic succession. And so we have received that knowledge. And we should try to make our lives perfect. And then our duty is to distribute this knowledge. A devotee is not just thinking for himself, but is trying to help others. And that is the order of the spiritual master. To preach Krishna consciousness by distributing books, by giving knowledge to others, by telling others to chant Hare Krishna. Bharad bhumita haila manusya janma jara janma satak kari kara paropakar. So one has taken birth in Bharat Bhumi, he should make his life perfect, and then it should do paropakar. Upakar means helping others. And para means, because different kind of help is there. If somebody is hungry, you give him prasad, that is one help. Somebody doesn't have cloth, or just a little piece of torn lungi or chadar, you give him some cloth, dhoti or kurta, whatever. So that is nice too, that is wonderful. That is a help for the others. But paropakar means giving transcendental knowledge by which they can understand their actual situation, by which they can advance in their spiritual life towards the highest destination. So we should do paropakar, giving the highest thing, that is transcendental knowledge, for the benefit of all. So we should try to distribute Krishna consciousness as much as possible to others. And by distributing books, or nowadays via the internet, giving classes or seminars, or just when devotees or people come to the temple giving the knowledge, or encouraging people to chant the Maha Mantra, which is the Yuga Dharma, which is the most important limb of devotional service. Ultimately chanting the holy names. But first, we have to hear also from the spiritual master, from the representative of the Lord. And then with the proper consciousness then, with the proper mood, then we may be able to chant properly, and then we'll get the full benefit of chanting the holy names. And then we can rapidly advance and attain perfection, even in this life. Hare Krishna.